Hello, my name is Jen, and I've been asked to share my experience with my dad and going through the process of MAID, so medically assisted in dying. Um, I, my dad first shared his intentions, his desires last Christmas, that he was thinking about um, the option of medically assisted death. Um, and so what came up for me first was grief and guilt, and like the grief around where his life must be to be questioning this option. And I experienced feeling guilt around, wanting to do more and wishing that I had done more for him earlier, to not be at the point of him wanting to go through the process of medically assisted death. So dad had been ill for quite some time. He's struggled with mental health for 20 years now, I'd say, and diagnosed schizophrenic, and has been in an institution for eight years. So, he was in and out, like through his he had a schizophrenic outbreak and was diagnosed 20 years ago, and in my opinion managed quite well. I mean, he wasn't thriving, but he was, he was managing, and he wasn't interested in taking meds at that time, and I supported him in that decision. And about 8 years ago, it seemed like he was struggling more and more with his mental health and decided to go on meds. And at that time, attempted suicide with those meds. So from that point, he was in an institution, whether it was for his mental health, and then his physical health also started to decline. So he went in for heart surgery, and he ended up falling and fracturing his hip. And from that point, mobility was a real struggle for him. So he was in a hospital, and then he was in various assisted living places. The last one being Edmonton People in Need Society. So that's a bit about his health journey. And dad was 70, and he passed this past July. So, as I said, those initial feelings of grief and guilt were certainly alive. And also this thought of, he's struggled with his mental health before. Is this another, attempted suicide? Processing this. There was a lot. There was a lot to process. So, I have the belief that our souls are eternal, and we come here in our human bodies at this time to experience life, and that we've agreed to certain challenges to learn certain lessons. And, I would say my fear around choosing to end one's life early is that is there an impact? Is there a consequence for our soul to do that? That's along the spiritual belief, there's certain amounts of challenges that we go through in life. And are we negating those challenges by choosing to end our life early? So those are the more spiritual questions that I had, and worries, I suppose, fears. Yeah, and then, as with losing a parent or anybody that we love, I certainly went through a lot of grief. And I noticed there was a lot of grief leading it. Like, I think I experienced a lot of the grief around losing my dad prior to him actually being gone. And I think it was like, processing what is it going to be like when he's gone, and knowing that it's coming. Likely similar to someone being diagnosed with a terminal illness and being told you have a certain amount of time left to live. So, yeah, that was obviously part of the experience. And in terms of going through with the MAID process, there was some blessings. It was honestly quite nice to be able to plan and to know when dad would be dying, and to be able to to plan it. And I got used to saying certain things. Well, death day, that was the thing that was kind of like, oh wow, that's a weird thing to say, kind of like birthday, but it's not birthday, it's death day. And to plan it as such, and being able to know it was coming, and to be able to take care of certain things like his will. And is there his bucket list per se? He didn't have any bucket list items, which is quite fascinating. Like, he felt at peace and he was ready, and that, I think, also allowed me that peace to know that he was making the right decision for him. And another beautiful thing is that he wasn't scared. He was ready, and yeah, he didn't have fear of dying. He was ready. So he was assessed by the doctors and put on the 90-day track. So he had developed Parkinson's, and I think that was one of the things that was really creating a challenge in his everyday life. And I suppose the fear and discomfort of losing more and more mobility of his body, and experiencing that. And I think that was likely a major cause in him, in the decline of his quality of life. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what kind of details you want, and I'm just free flowing, so it's a long video, and there's emotional, there's spiritual, and then there's actually the physical process of it. So, yeah, the 90-day track, it allowed us time. I'm grateful that it wasn't a 10-day track, and I feel like, perhaps for some people who are in a worse medical condition, that would be more in line with what they need or desire. And to me, the 90 days was nice to be able to kind of slowly ease into the idea that we'd be going through this experience. We were able to have a beautiful ceremony before Dad passed on that day, so we set up a time, and yeah, it was fairly peaceful, and again, really nice to be able to plan and have whoever wanted to be in the room be there, and to, hold his hand and be present while Dad passed. I think those were beautiful aspects of it. It certainly made me think of those who have experienced a tragic death, and if I have to say one or the other, I mean, this was, I am grateful for this experience over a tragic one in terms of losing my dad. Yeah, I think that's all I've got in terms of my experience. I mean, I feel like I could go on, and we're at 11.5 minutes already, so that's the gist of my experience of MAID with my dad. Thanks. I hope this story supports others in whatever way it's needed.